Hey residents of MeepleTown, today we are looking at Arkwright the card game. This is the 18th century and it is the Industrial Revolution, and we are taking on the role of entrepreneurs who are building up our factories, trying to produce a lot of goods, employ employees, put machines into those factories so that we can build this great engine to produce goods and sell them at a high price and be able to boost the stock for our company. So let's get to the table and check out Arkwright the card game. Okay, here is the setup for Arkwright the card game. I'm going to be playing through a two-player game. We've got the blue player over here who will be the first player based on this first player marker. And then we've got the second player, which is the orange player. I'm just going to play through a couple of rounds of this just to kind of give you an idea of how things play through. And yeah, we're just going to jump right into this like we normally do. I'll be playing both players. So right over here on the blue player side, you've got the player board, which determines all of the different developments that that player has going on. They also start off with two factories, the food and the lamp factory. The orange player also has their player board, and they start off with the cutlery and the clothing factories. Now what's going to happen is we're going to play through 3 decades, and in the first decade you're going to play through each of these factories. We're going to start off with the food factory, which means that we're going to be producing. This is going to be the producing factory, is the food factory. Now you look and say, well, the blue player has the food factory and the orange player doesn't. Well, they'll have an opportunity to build that even as early as the first round. So what is going to happen first off is the first player is going to take one action, and that's all they're going to do. On your turn, you're just going to take one action, which seems a little crazy because over the course of the game, you're only going to be taking a total of 12 actions. Then you will be setting your price, and you're going to be setting the appeal for that factory, and then finally you are going to be upgrading your development, and then you all produce together. So starting off, the other thing is each player starts off with a development card. This is set up as determined in the rule book. This player, I'll explain that a little bit later, but this is going to be a boost for them. It's going to be a boost for whenever they produce, whenever they pay their production cost, they won't have to pay, they'll pay 2 less for each worker that they're paying. And the second player has something similar to that, and that's only for that factory. The second player, however, is for the factories that they're going to be building, producing from, the machines will, normally they cost 1, but this one will get 2 free machines to be able to work with. So let's go ahead and take our action for the blue player. Now there's several different things that they can do, and this is all laid out on this player guide, which I'm not going to really go through that because it makes 0 sense to you if you've never played the game. However, I do think the iconography is helpful. Once you've played through it, it all makes sense, and so I do think that that is well done. It just might not make sense for you the first time you're playing. Now I can build a factory, a new factory, or factories. I can build as many as I want, but you understand that you're gonna have to pay the cost for those. You can also employ workers that will be able to give you more production, but your production costs will be higher. You can automate your workers, which turns your employees into machines, which are cheaper to maintain. You can boost up your quality or your distribution, which will allow you to set the price higher or set the appeal higher. We'll get to that when we get there. So I think, and then you can also buy stock and do some other things there with that last action. I think what the blue player wants to do is they want to focus on this bread factory right now because that's going to be what their benefit will be for this round, and then it will happen 2 more times. Now right now I'm producing 3 bread because there's 3 bread symbols on there, and then I will have to pay for 3 workers in 1 machine. Now I'd like to be able to boost that up to some capacity. If I hire more workers in those factories, it's going to be more expensive, but they'll produce more. So I think what I'm going to do right off the bat, and each player has their own deck of cards, but I'm going to take my distribution card and I'm going to put that into play. Now on your player board, you have these different development things set up. Now at the beginning, you can produce 2 distribution from the card when you put that into play. So what I'll do is I'll go through my deck of cards and I'll take my my level 2 distribution, and I'm going to put this again on my bread factory, and it's going to stay there. Now what this does is this is going to affect the appeal, and I'll explain that in just a second. And by just a second, I mean right now, because I can go ahead and do that. All right, I just put that card in play, and that's all that happens. Now what is going to happen next is you are going to need to set your appeal, and I didn't put my little markers out here for the blue player, so I'll go ahead and do that now. Setting the appeal and setting the price is a big part of this game. When you set the appeal, that means that's how many goods you're going to be able to sell. That's how that's going to affect that. When you're setting your price, obviously that's how much you can sell it for. So you want to have a higher price, and you also want to have a high enough appeal that is going to be enough to sell the goods that you need to, but not too high, because that is also going to lower the price. So there's a big balance in how that works out. So right now, I'm going to be able to produce 3 bread during the production phase, which means I need to be able to have at least a 3 appeal. How this works is you are going to look over at this board, and this determines the appeal and how many you can sell. So let's say my appeal was set at 3. Whenever it's time to produce goods, I'm going to look at the difference between where my distribution marker, where my appeal marker is, versus where this demand marker from it is on the board. If it's in the 0 spot, what I'm going to do is take the difference. 3 minus 0 is going to be 3, so I can sell 3 goods. If this moves across into this 1 space, then that is going to mean I'm going to need to have it at 4 in order for me to be able to produce, for me to be able to sell 3 goods. That'll hopefully make a little bit more sense, but just have an idea that I'm trying to balance that appeal and price out. Now the problem is with the first player is this can change from other players, and so I could have enough appeal early on, but then this board is going to be adjusted, and so that might change things a little bit for me. But I feel pretty confident in 2-player game that this is actually going to stay the same or pretty similar. So what I will do is I put that distribution card in there. Again, I'm going to set my appeal to 3. Now I've got 2 already on here, so I need to have this bottom number to make it 3. So now I've got my appeal at 3. This is going to go 1, 2 into the 3rd spot. And when I crossed over from 1 to 2, I'm going to move up this marker on here. So the closer it gets there, again, it's going to change the demand for that item. Now, if nothing changes whenever we produce, I'll be able to sell 3 goods that I obviously can produce right here. And they're going to sell for however many coins you have on here. So this number 4 and this number 4, so they'll sell for 8. And I'll explain that again when we get there. So that is setting the appeal. That's the second part of your turn. The third part of your turn is you're going to develop. So I can upgrade my board here, or I can take one of these cards that are available to me, or one of these cards here. And I think what I'm going to do, I would like to improve my quality, which works similar to the distribution card, except that one quality focuses on your appeal and your price. So you can adjust your appeal or your price. And the quality doesn't change, however, distribution will change, and you'll see that at the end of the round. That is now my turn. That's the blue player's turn. That's all they're going to do. Probably seems like a lot. Again, if you've never played this game, it's going to seem like a lot, but I promise it's not too overwhelming. Now back over to the orange player. The orange player is thinking, I don't have anything that I can produce this round. Now they can build a factory, which they can build as many as they want. So they can go ahead and put the bread out there and then put the lamp one out there, so they're producing in all of them. But they think they're going to go ahead and just kind of set themselves up for the future round. And they would like to kind of produce or have higher quality or higher distribution like the first player. However, I think what they're going to do, they're looking to the next round. They're thinking, I'm going to go ahead and hire workers, because if I hire workers, I'll be able to produce more goods. So they're going to go through their deck of cards, look through the one that is, I probably should have had these in better order. Look through the one that is going to be for clothing and making sure that it's in that first decade, and they're just going to take this card and place it underneath here. They're also, when you do this, you can employ workers in other factories as well. So I think what I'll do, they're going to go ahead and look forward to the cutlery. Now this is going to be an expensive thing to do and maybe not the best move for the first round. However, over time that should pay off as long as I'm able to automate these factories more and really take advantage of the special card, this special development card that I have. So they'll move this card into place here, and what this means now is for these factories, again, they'll be able to produce more goods, but their cost is actually pretty outrageous right now, so we're gonna have to try to get that down in later rounds. But none of that's going to affect them right now. Normally they would set their appeal. However, they're not producing the bread, the food this round, so they don't set any appeal. They won't do that until it comes to their factory when they're gonna produce. So they'll skip that part, but they will go ahead and develop. And they're thinking, I'd really like to be able to automate some of my workers. And so they're gonna move up here, which will allow them, when they take that automate workers, changing those workers into machines, they'll be able to do 3 at a time instead of 2. Potentially they're gonna wanna move up to 4 since they have 4 out there, and that would really benefit them. And so that's their development part. Now that is the end of that first phase for the players. Now we're gonna go on to the production phase. I already kind of explained how this worked with the appeal marker and the setting the appeal to be able to sell your goods. So the blue player is already set to go. They have enough appeal. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, I made a mistake. Whenever the orange player hired their employees, something on the board changes. So all of these markers, all of these demand markers are going to move down 1. They're going to move down 1, and the cost, the employee wage marker, is going to move over to the right. So they're going to get more expensive as the game goes on. That happens whenever you hire employees or whenever you build factories. Excuse me for making that mistake, but that is all caught up now. So now the blue player is going to sell. They're again going to be able to sell 3 goods at $8 a piece, which is going to be 24. So they're going to go ahead and take their marker, move from 50 up to 74. Now, after they do that, they are able to, they're going to be able to store extra goods or ship them, and they don't have any extra goods, so they don't need to do that. But just so you know, you can store goods if you're not able to sell them to be able to sell later on, or you can ship them and gain the price listed on your factory. And you can make good money that way, but whenever that happens, you're going to take a shipping token and put it on here, which is going to lower the cost of your, the price of your stock at the end of the game. Now, the end of the game, again, you want to have the most stock set at the highest price. I don't know if I mentioned that at the beginning, but that's going to determine the winner, not the amount of money that you have at the end of the game, but you're going to multiply the amount of stocks that you have by the price of those stocks. So it's super important that you're going to set those, be able to move up on those tracks correctly. So they paid that. They're not going to store anything. Now what they're going to do is pay for their cost of production. Each worker, as we see on this track, is going to cost 3 pounds. So that's going to be 3. And then each machine is going to cost 1. Now, the special ability that they have for their bread factory, which is why they really want to try to build up that bread factory, is that the workers cost 2 less. So they're actually only going to cost 1 apiece, 1, 2, 3, 4, if you count the machine. This is 2 less for the max of 4. So 4 total plus the cost of the factory, which on this one is, got to get a little closer, 9. So on this one, we're going to have to pay a total of 13. So that's going to be down to 1, 2, 3, 61, and that's going to be how much money that they have right now. Now what's going to happen for them is their distribution marker is going to depreciate 1, so now it's going to be less valuable. They got a little boost right at the beginning, but that doesn't last long, so they're going to have to figure out different ways to really improve this factory. And that is going to be the first phase of that. Now, once we finish that up, we are going to determine how many goods were sold. If you sold more than 2 goods, sold to the home market, not shipped, but sold to the home market, then you're going to move up your stock price by 1. Now, if you've sold more than anyone else during that phase, if your appeal marker is higher than anyone else's during that phase, you can move up another 1. Now, in a 2-player game, you have these appeal markers on here, and so that actually changes a little bit how that works out. So I'm actually tied, meaning that nobody would get that appeal bonus. So now my stock is at 11, and I have 10, but I'm going to need to move both of those up to continue on. And that is going to do it for the end of the first round. So next thing we're going to do is we are going to move this over to the second phase, and then the first player marker is going to go to the second player. That's the end of the first round. Pretty simple, right? So let's go ahead and we're going to run through another one pretty quickly, just so that you can get an idea. So now again, the first player is going to take, the orange player is going to take an action, and they can, again, build factories. They really would like to build this up. When they took this action here, they had in mind that they wanted to automate their workers. And they would really like to do that right now, but they would want to get that better bonus. So I think what they're going to do is boost up their... it's not going to be much of a boost. This is going to be a tough one to do. So I think what they're going to do is the same thing. They're going to take that distribution action. They're going to take that level 2 card, which means they probably should have in that first round try to boost up that distribution. They'll take that level 2. They're going to slide it in here, so that will help with their appeal or their price. In this case, they will have it help their appeal. They need to be able to sell 1, 2, 3, 4 potentially, unless they want to ship, but I think they want to go ahead and try to sell to the home market. So they've got 2 here, appeal. They're going to want to set this to 2 to have that at 4. This will move them up to 4 here. Now the blue player, unless they build a factory, will not be able to adjust that. So they feel pretty confident that they're going to be safe having that in the 4th spot. However, when they crossed over that, they moved up 2. So there is a chance that that could move up if the blue player builds a factory, but they're feeling pretty good about it, feeling like they're not going to have to do that. And if nothing else changes, they'll be able to sell all 4 of those items for a total of $9 a piece. That could be a really big boost for them. And so that's their action. They've set their appeal. Now they're going to move up on their development board or take a card. They like some of the card options up there, but I think what they're going to do is move over again to max out on that automation, so that when they're ready to automate, they can do all of that in one action, and everything will be a lot cheaper, especially with their card that allows them to get a bit of a discount for those machines. So that is going to be the orange player's turn. The blue player is thinking they would like to boost up the factory here, and that's why they moved up on this quality. Quality, again, works kind of like distribution, except it doesn't fade, and it also will allow them to adjust the price or the appeal. So they're going to take this, they're going to bump it into the spot in their lamps, although they could put it in either one, and they could even, if they put a 1 here and a 1 here, they could split that up in different ways. Excuse me. And then they're going to then set their appeal for the clothing. They don't have a clothing factory, so they're going to skip that. Now what they'll do is they're going to take a development action. What they're going to do is they're going to move up on this stock, the stock buying action place on the development. Obviously I didn't get that right on the naming of that, but what this is going to do is it's going to allow them to buy they can buy as many stocks as they want when they take that stock buying action. If they have this boosted up one, they're going to buy their first one for half off, and then if they move it over again, they'll be able to buy their first 2 for half off. So they're thinking they want to go ahead, they got some money, they want to spend some money later on. They're preparing for that. And so that will be the end of their turn. Now we do the production phase for the producing factory. This, again, is the producing factory. And so, I didn't show this very well. I know this isn't the right producing factory, but just so you get a better idea of what this looks like, you can see what I'm looking at. So again, the price is set at the top here. The bottom has the appeal. This is going to be the cost to run the factory. This is the second arrow side. In fact, I should have it on this side. This is more of what you're looking at. So the cost to run the factory is listed up here. And then if you ship anything, this is how much you're going to get when you ship it. In this case, it's going to be 11. So just so you have a better view of what I'm looking at for the factories. All right, the production phase for the orange player. Again, the blue player is not going to produce this round, but for the orange player, they've already got their appeal set. They've got it set at 4, and theirs is at 0. The demand marker is at 0. So they are going to be able to sell all 4 of these to the home market at $9 a piece. So we're going to take 9 times 4, which is 36. They're going to go up 10, 20, 30, all the way up to 86. Now their cost is going to be a bit higher. They don't have to put anything in the warehouses or anything like that. They're all set to go. The cost of this one is going to be 11, so we'll go ahead and take that down 11 minus the cost of the workers, which is where it's going to really cost them a lot. Now both of these machines are going to be free because of their special development card that they have, but they will have to pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 3, $15, and so that's going to drop them down to 60. So now they did make $10 there, which is good. You know, in this game, it's weird because you feel like you're making a lot when you sell that, but then you have to pay the production, and that's where it really hits you. So you want to make sure that you can sell it again for as much money as you possibly can. In this case, they needed to have it set a little bit lower instead of being able to sell it at 7. So they're going to have to, again, continue to refine and make their factories better and more efficient as the game goes on. So once they've done that, they're going to also drop their distribution down to 1, just like the other player. And so they're going to, again, have to figure out a way to really boost that, because right now that's not going to be super effective. That was just a tiny boost at the beginning to give them a little bit more money. May not have been the most effective thing, but they'll also be able to automate this factory as they go. So they have then taken that. They also sold 2 goods, so they will be moving up 1 in their stock price. And they do have the lead in the appeal track, so they're going to move up once again. Now, that's a benefit, right? It's a benefit to be able to move up on these tracks, but the negative in that is as that's boosting up, it means that it's going to cost them more to be able to buy stocks. And so moving up on the price is a really good thing if you have a lot of stock, but you're going to have to get to the place where you're buying more. So that's something to keep in mind. You got to figure out a way to really buy stock to do well at purchasing the stock. So that is the end of that phase. You would slide that over. First player marker goes back here, and then what you would do is start with the cutlery round, and then you're going to continue on at that pace. So that gives you a good idea on how the game plays out. While we got you down here, let's go ahead and talk about the art and components. Now this is a Kickstarter preview, so this is a prototype copy, but I will say that I feel like everything is done really well in this game. There's a lot. This is not a light game. This is a heavier game based on Arkwright, the board game, which is a very heavy game. With this game, I feel like the iconography needs to be done well. And again, you look at this card and you think, oh my goodness, that's a lot going on there for the instructions on how to play this game. Each of the cards has heavy icons on it. You've got those distribution cards, you've got your quality cards, you have all of your different worker cards. Everything needs to be very clear, and I do feel like in this game it is well done. If it wasn't, it would be really difficult to grasp this game. The art, I think, is fine. There's not a whole lot of art. Most of the art that you're going to see is going to be on these development cards. Everything else is pretty much symbology on the boards and the playing cards themselves. It's fine. It is what it is. I'm definitely not complaining, because I think that's kind of the way that it needs to be. Everything needs to be very clear. Now, on to the gameplay itself. I think the gameplay is good. I think the gameplay is actually really good. I was really impressed by this game. Now, if you've watched our Kickstarter previews before, you'll know that we don't give our final ratings. When I say me this time, I'm not going to give my final rating on this one until we get a chance to play the final copy of the game. But I was really impressed by this one. Arkwright's a game that I've been interested in a while, but I've actually been pretty intimidated by it because it's a heavy game. And if you know me, you know that I can be hit or miss with heavy games. John tends to be the one that enjoys heavy games more. But in this time, I actually enjoyed this one quite a bit. John liked this one too. We weren't able to work out the video to do this together, to be able to get this out really in the nick of time. But John did like this one, but I definitely like this one a lot more. I really enjoyed, and I don't always love tightness in games, but I did in this one. This game is really tight, and I feel like there's very interesting decisions to make. A lot of interesting decisions to make. You have to decide in that one action. You can only do one thing. You can build factories. You can build workers. There's lots of different things that you can do in ways that you can manipulate your different factories, but you have to be super efficient in this game, and making a mistake can be very detrimental. And so that's what makes it so tight, is every decision is grueling and every decision has to be really important. I think when I was doing this playthrough, I don't feel like I was making the most effective moves in the game. And if I was playing with somebody who really knew what they were doing, they would probably destroy me because of it. But I still love those grueling decisions. I really enjoy the tightness of the game. I enjoy how you're manipulating these factories and determining, I can make this factory really, really good. I've got this bread factory going for the blue player that could be something pretty special. However, I have to make the decision, do I also want to build other factories that are going to give me more income and allow me to also move up on the stock price track, or do I really just want to hone in on these two factories that I start off with? And I think both of those can be valid choices. I think there's lots of valid ways to approach this game. You can move up on different things of the development track that can really benefit you in particular situations, but you might not always want to go that route. I might not always want to focus on really being able to automate all of my workers. I might want to spend more time focusing on getting the development cards, and you have to move up on the track to be able to get more cards that will give you different boosts. And I think all of those decisions are really interesting and really, really tight. Now, one thing I was just showing you is this is the kind of the basic, I said basic game because it's not a super easy game. It's not too difficult. I think you can grasp it after a round or two of playing through this. But I think a negative that I can have is when you're just playing the basic game. Now the expert variant, the expert setup does change things. It changes the cards. It changes the way that everything sets up. And I think that's probably going to be the way that you're going to want to play. The basic game itself can probably not have a ton of replayability. I think the replayability really comes in exploring all of these new strategies and figure out different ways to manipulate your factories. But eventually, if you just play with that main setup, you're going to play it out, right? You're going to maybe figure out the best moves to make. Now, when you change to that expert setup, it does change all of that, so it adds more replayability. But ultimately, in this game, you are just building up your factories, producing and selling those goods. So if you like that kind of game, if you like a game where you are where you're building this engine, if you like a game where you have to be super efficient, a super tight game, if you like games that are more on the complex side of things, I think you definitely got to check this one out. For me, really pleasantly surprised. I've enjoyed my plays of this. I look forward to playing it more and exploring more of what this game has to offer. So that is my thoughts. Again, not final rating on this game, but I really have enjoyed this one. Check it out if those things appeal to you. If you want to get in touch with us, you can go to MeepleTownGames.com to see all of our content with our podcast, YouTube videos, etc. You can also see some of our games that we have rated in the past on there. We've got a list of those. You can also go to @MeepleTownGames on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can reach out to us on the Board Game Geek Guild, guild number 3407. We have some good conversations on there. And that's going to do it. Till next time, thanks for coming down to MeepleTown. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to follow us on Twitter @MeepleTownGames. And connect with us on the MeepleTown Guild, guild number 3407, at BoardGameGeek.com. And also subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel. And until next time, thanks for coming down to MeepleTown.